Doctor Who. Let's talk about it. The episode begins with Yaz celebrating her grandmother Umbream's birthday with her family. After a quick exposition dump, Yaz becomes increasingly curious about her grandmother's secretive past. She goes to the doctor to convince her to go back in time to see her when she was much younger. The doctor gives in and travels to 1947 India, and almost immediately realises something isn't quite right. They travel to an old farm to meet a much younger Umbream the day before she's about to be married. All the while, mysterious creatures watch from a distance. We're introduced to a few more characters. We're first introduced to Prem, a former Indian soldier who is engaged to be married to Umbream, who is a strong, independent Muslim woman. And Manish, who is Prem's younger brother, and whom we soon learn resents his Hindu brother for marrying a Muslim woman. Doctor Who, everyone. Throughout the episode you get to know more about each one, though other than how I've described them, there isn't really any more to them. How I've described them is exactly how they are till the end. Well, minus Prem being alive. Which I suppose is the case with a lot of Doctor Who characters. Though if you're looking for a big science fiction adventure, which is what I watch Doctor Who for, these characters aren't going to do it for you. For what it's worth, however, these characters are written fine and consistent with what they want. So, on the one hand, I could praise the characters for being written fine. They might not change much throughout the episode, but at least all of them are consistent. That's more than I can say for the Doctor and her companions. But on the other hand, these aren't the types of characters and topics I watch Doctor Who for. I suppose it all depends on taste, but I don't think Doctor Who was made with soap operas in mind. I can at least glean some enjoyment out of these new characters. Another character I haven't mentioned yet was the schizophrenic grandmother. Honestly, every time this woman was on screen she had something horrible to comment on everything being cursed.
Your family, Manish. Cursed.
Mum.
This is another terrible omen for you.
Thanks for that.
I particularly liked her comment on her own granddaughter's wedding day.
Prem. Cursed.
Well, I bet you're real good at parties, aren't you? The Doctor and her companions still lack any sort of proper development.
Hey, that worked.
Each one still has the same problem as before, the Doctor being loud and annoying, Ryan being near pointless, and Graham being the only interesting character still. Out of all of them, for this episode, I'm disappointed in Yaz's character the most. This is Yaz's episode. She sets up the plot, and it's her that should be affected the most by everything happening. She is going against her own grandmother's privacy, and convinces the Doctor to go against her own rules just to satisfy her curiosity. There is potential for so much character interactions and development. Think of all the possibilities. Could you imagine the emotion Yaz would go through, discovering that her trusted grandmother would hold off very important information of her life from her? The episode could play around with that. We could learn something about Yaz, see a side of her we've never seen before. Perhaps they could explore Yaz's behaviour from how she was at the beginning of the episode versus how she was at the end. Her motivations from the start of the episode seem rather selfish and invasive, so maybe she should learn to improve upon that and change by the end? It seems like the episode does at first attempt something along those lines, but either through bad writing, acting, or both, it doesn't seem to pay off to anything substantial. Yaz acts upset for a good 5 minutes after she learns her grandmother wasn't telling her everything, and is pretty much fine after Graham talks with her. It doesn't help that she said she trusted her grandmother even though there is barely a shred of evidence to tell us exactly that. The more I imagine what these characters could have been, the more frustrated I get. Yaz is completely sidelined to focus on other characters. I wouldn't be remotely shocked if it turned out, of all the characters, Yaz had the least amount of screen time in this episode. An episode that should be about her. Then again, it could have been that Yaz straight up has no character. Other than piloting a crane in the first episode, she hasn't done or said anything worthwhile up to this point. There is just nothing to work with this character. She's a police lady. She has a family. That's it. I think she directly spoke to Umbream, her own grandmother, when she was about her age, twice in this episode.
If something happens to Umbream, your whole timeline could be erased. No Yaz! We can't have a universe with no Yaz!
Yep, you walk yourself right into that one. And can we just take a moment to talk about this dialogue?
You think I give up that easily? I've seen a war take our young and drought taker old and weak. Now men without a clue are imposing a border like a crack through my country.
Ordinary people who've lived here all their lives, whipped into a frenzy to be part of a mob. Nothing worse than when normal people lose their minds. We've lived together for decades. Hindu, Muslim, and Sikh. And now we're being told our differences are more important than what unites us. Like we learned nothing in the war. I don't know how we protect people when hatred's coming from all sides.
No one talks this way naturally. What are you, poets? So more than halfway through the series, we have a pointless character that's wasted any potential she might have had. This reminds me of the Series 1 episode, Father's Day, where Rose goes back in time with the Doctor to save her father from being killed. The episode differs from this one mainly in that it focuses on changing the past, while this one doesn't, but in terms of character motivations, these premises are pretty similar. I'm not averse to similar concepts being explored again, but in terms of what's on offer here, I don't see why I wouldn't just watch an episode from 13 years prior instead for overall better character moments and development.
When we met, I said, travel with me in space. You said no. Then I said, time machine.
It wasn't some big plan. I just saw it happening and I thought, I can stop it.
I did it again. I picked another stupid ape. I should have known. It's not about showing you the universe. It never is. It's about the universe doing something for you.
I love biscuits.
While I find the characters flawed, the story I think is solid for what it is. Similar to the first episode of the season, there's a lot of back and forth to keep up with, but there's also enough time to stop and take a break from all the running and action. Again, it depends on if you're interested in what they're talking about in these slower moments, if that's a good thing. Which I'm not. The story might be fine, but like I said before, it should have centred around Yaz, seeing as how it's her past that was being explored. Instead it just seems to try and focus on everything equally. There's 3 separate stories to keep track of. There's the mystery, the marriage, and the partition. 4 if you count the aliens, but we'll get into that in a minute. Each of these subplots are given equal amount of time, and because each of these subplots are given equal amount of time, all of them feel rushed and not fleshed out enough. Even the marriage at the end feels somewhat half-baked. We're simply not given enough time on anything. Which, you think there would be enough time seeing as how the episode is an hour long. It could be because it's focused more on the boring details, or maybe because the dialogue is superbly uninspired. Most of all, the dialogue is bland and boring. You won't be getting anything from these characters except exactly what they say to each other.
You're late. And who are they?
Your family, Umbria.
What?
What's wrong with your feet? You young people. Always such a rush. Walking served me all my life. I'll be there. Don't you worry.
The land belongs to everyone, has done for centuries. One day doesn't change that. I love you, brother, but you're wrong. I'm coming with you.
No.
I know this forest. I can help.
Okay. Did it get out of hand? Did you scare yourself? Because you were too young for the war. You've never fought or killed anyone.
I'm not scared of anything, because this is my time to fight. Fight for what I believe.
Another stupid ape.
Listening to this dialogue is like listening to a radio play.
We've lost the doctor! She was with us and then gone!
It's not just a problem with this episode, but this whole series so far. I swear, there's been more talking than actual action. A good example would be when the Doctor asks her companions to find a bunch of items.
I need oil, water, tree bark, a saucepan, 9 containers, an old newspaper, a touch of ox spit, a chicken poo, and a biscuit.
Bagsy, not chicken poo.
Why a biscuit?
I love biscuits.
Are we going to see any of that? Are we even going to see the Doctor put the contraption together? No. It's just talking for the sake of talking. Because that's the character of the Doctor. Always talking all this scientific nonsense.
Another stupid
Chicken poo.
At the end of the day, this episode isn't going to win anyone over. I mean, it might if you like soap operas. And you're 80 years old, but for the rest of us who want a scientific fantasy adventure, you're not going to get a lot out of this episode. It's not all doom and gloom though. There were some genuinely good stuff in this episode. It's odd, for all the lackluster and straight up bad stuff this series has brought, there were some aspects that really bumped up the quality for this episode specifically. For one, the scenery in this episode is really good actually. I got no idea if Iraq or India looks like this, but damn, it's pretty. It's shot very well, and unlike the other episodes, the colours are lush and easy on the eyes. Okay, maybe it isn't as special as I'm making it out to be, but compared to the last episode, it's like I'm seeing colour for the first time in my life. Another aspect that really stood out for me, specifically, was the music. There were some really nice tracks to listen to here. Sure, it's all personal preference, but I think it fits the setting perfectly, as well as being an all-around good soundtrack. You could make the argument that this type of music doesn't fit a series like Doctor Who, and you could also make the argument that Murray Gold's soundtrack for the last 10 seasons were superior, and I would agree with you honestly. Murray Gold's soundtrack in the previous seasons were so godlike I'm surprised they never kept him for this season. Though it could be that he left, but I don't know what the circumstances were and I can't be bothered looking it up. Point is, while I do like the soundtrack for this season, and especially this episode in particular, the overall quality of the score just doesn't compare. I can hardly blame the composer though. Murray seemed to work with the actors, directors and story to make the best soundtrack possible, resulting in a magnificent soundtrack that I'm surprised I haven't paid money for yet, honestly. This new composer, Segun Akinola, what is with these names, man? Seems to have just been told to make music for this bit. Therefore, a lot of the soundtrack is a low-key, gloomy, atmospheric tune a lot of the time. It doesn't fit the character of the Doctor or situations a lot of the time. At least not to the same way Murray's music did. Again, I don't dislike this season's score. I just don't see as much experimentation with it as I did the previous seasons. Point is, I like the music in this episode. If I had to be picky, I'd say I liked the costuming in this episode. Nothing in particular about it. It's just better seeing costumes that look like real clothes instead of the desperate futuristic looking plastic get-ups that were used in the episodes prior. These were a couple things I liked about this episode. Obviously these aren't enough to fix the shortcomings I had with it, but it's definitely something to make rewatching it more bearable. I actually got some cool stuff out of this one. Unlike the previous episode where it was so boring, I actually started crying out of sheer frustration when I had to constantly rewatch it. Now it's hardly a compliment to say, it makes it more bearable, but at this rate, I'll take what I can get with this series. Let's take a look at our monsters. The Shanarnia? The Fijarinianiarnia. Tell me these aren't the coolest looking monsters you've ever seen. Okay, they're probably not that cool, but I mean, look at them. And don't just look at them. Look at what they're capable of. And the voices.
You disrupt our work.
Good. Now who are you here for?
We don't answer to you. You must leave, or we will stand over your corpses.
This is a terrifying threat. Unlike the pathetic rat in the previous episode that was built up to be the deadliest monster in the known universe, the Thuringians are the aliens that deserve a title like that, and the Doctor knows this. Throughout the episode she is constantly on her feet, doing everything in her power to stop them taking any lives.
What? What have you seen, Doctor?
This is a Thajarian hive.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Thajarians are assassins.
Right, so that's basically a bad thing then.
I've heard about them, never come across them. They're one of the ancient species, evolved themselves into the deadliest assassins in the known universe.
If this episode is anything, it's exciting to think about where they're going to go with these aliens. You lot have no idea how much I've been looking forward to a great monster. All we've had so far was Tim Shaw, who was alright but nothing special, aliens which look like humans, barely functioning killer robots, fabric, a white guy, giant spiders, another white guy, and the deadliest species ever known. All these threats have been lacking, but with these Ithorians now being completely established, I can't wait to see how they play around with them. Think of the potential. Think of the...
are not assassins.
Don't lie to me. I know the stories of the assassins of Thajar.
We are changed.
What? Changed how?
Our past is no more. We are no longer assassins. Now we are witnesses. As the assassins hunted, the Thajarian world was destroyed. We returned to find nothing. Every ancestor. All one. Us. They died unwitnessed, unsaved. We were too late to grieve or honor them. But we who returned gave up 100 generations to sift, to remember the lost dead, the unmourned. In time, it was all we knew. And now we travel beyond, seeking the unacknowledged dead across all of time and space. This is now the Thajarian mission, to bear witness to those alone, to see, to bear pain, honor life as it passes.
Why? Why would you waste such potential? You have one of the most deadliest aliens ever created in Doctor Who. Aliens whose existence is to kill, to exterminate any life quickly, efficiently, and silently. Now you're telling me that the last two in existence have reformed their ways because all the others are dead? Alright. Putting my immense disappointment aside for a moment, to tell me that these creatures evolved to be the deadliest assassins for presumably millions of years, killing others for their entire existence, had suddenly grown a conscience because their planet was destroyed, is a lot to take in. We've now learned that the Hungarians were never a threat to anyone. Their existence is now to travel through time, to ensure those who die alone and forgotten are remembered, unlike the planet that was once their home. A truly kind and passionate imperative, coming from the creatures that look like every child's nightmare. Of course, this raises more questions. Are these the only two Lutherans that left their planet before it was destroyed? If not, how many would still be out there? If there are more, have they reformed like these authoritarians? Who destroyed their planet? Why was their planet destroyed? Was it because they were killing everyone? Is it not better for a species evolved to kill to be destroyed? How many beings did the Mandalorians kill before their planet was destroyed? Did they kill innocents? How many beings did these two Thesontarans kill before they were reformed? If they did kill anyone, why wouldn't the Doctor have a problem with this? What benefit would the lacto-vegetarians have to the universe if their planet still remained? This is just a small sample of many questions I have that'll never be answered because we have a wedding to attend. And I really need to pee, I'll be 2 seconds. See, before the Serena Alexandras told the Doctor that they weren't going to kill Prem, the former Indian soldier man who was engaged to be married to Umbream, a younger version of Yaz's grandmother, the Doctor thought that they were. Prem was still going to die though, but the twist here is that the aliens weren't going to be the ones that killed him. He was instead going to be killed by the gang that Prem's younger brother, Manish, brought right after the wedding Prem and Umbream had. Got all that? So to make sure everyone's safe, Prem bravely faces his demons and confronts his younger brother. The aliens watch from a distance, the Doctor and gang walk back to the TARDIS, Umbream runs all the way to Sheffield and Prem gets shot in the flipping face. Yaz returns home with a newfound appreciation for her grandmother, even though she kinda loved her from the very beginning. Well, at least Yaz knows the truth about her grandmother's past, even though it completely went against her privacy, and she offers to tell her what happened anyway.
You want to know about the watch? Really? No.
Well, at least the Doctor stopped the aliens from killing Prem so he can have his wedding, even though the aliens had absolutely no ill intention, and he ends up getting shot anyway. Well, at least Ryan... never mind. Can someone tell me what the point of this episode was? Yaz begins the episode loving her grandmother and ends the exact same way. The Doctor tries to stop the aliens who had no ill intention in the first place, and are terrible at being the one thing they're evolved to do, be silent assassins. Prem marries Umbream but is killed because history demands it. Was there any other point to being here other than complete curiosity on Yaz's part? No, there wasn't. This episode, out of all the episodes of this season, feels like the most pointless of all of them so far. The only thing I can glean from this episode is the concept of being unable to change what happened in the past. Again, something many other episodes already did, and did superbly better, including the aforementioned Father's Day in Season 1. Also, I just realised something. The aliens are supposed to view everyone who died alone and forgotten. They watch Prem die as his head explodes and, I guess, document him so he will be remembered. Except, he's already remembered. Umbream remembers him. The Doctor remembers him. Yaz remembers him. His own brother remembers him, and will probably remember him for the rest of his life. Even if it is out of guilt, he's remembered by loads of people. So, do the aliens document everyone who dies? Not just the ones who aren't remembered by anyone? Is it because they are forgotten through time? Eventually everyone dies in history with them. Does it apply to everyone then? Does it apply to everything? Does it matter? Do I care? Not much. Before I wrap things up for this review, there is one more thing I'd love to discuss. Lots of people might have differing opinions on this, so please take what I say with a grain of salt. There is a moment where the Doctor sits with all the girls the night before the wedding. Here she gets Indian-style hand makeup and a hair clip on her head. Now, consider everything the Doctor's been through. Consider his adventures through time and space. Think of all the crazy and insane things he's gone through in the 2,000 years he's been alive. Now consider the humour that could derive from this scene. This is something the Doctor's never experienced. This is the most perfect opportunity for the Doctor to experience something completely new, something he would never maybe do as a male, to do something humans do that seems so primitive and obscene, a moment to learn how different women are to men, or even humans are to Time Lords. Just from this setup alone, has just about endless potential to give us something new, something this Doctor could have, that no other Doctor ever could. Thinking about it, this scene could have been something special. But instead we get this.
This is the best thing ever. Never did this when I was a man.
Doctor,
You and your jokes? Yeah, that's right. My references to body and gender regeneration are all in jest.
This is what we get. The Doctor telling another unfunny joke. If it was meant to be a joke and not just a statement, why would we bother giving something to the main character when we have weddings and feelings to talk about from characters that we're never gonna see again? The moment where the Doctor gave the speech at the wedding, that made me realise, this isn't the Doctor. This is not the same character that's lasted over 50 years. To think that the Doctor would put on a hair clip like this and go about his business without giving it a second thought is a complete betrayal of the character. I truly believe that. To think that William Hartnell's Doctor Tom Baker's Doctor, David Tennant's, Capaldi's, every single one of them. To think that they would do something like that so willingly is wrong. Whittaker's Doctor has become a shadow of his, or her, former self. Every single Doctor before Whittaker, there was a trace of his past lives. You could see the transition, and you could believe it. In Capaldi, you could see a trace of every Doctor before him, taking just enough from each one to suit the kind of Doctor he was. The same can be said for all of them. Not Whittaker. Not this Doctor. To go from this...
I'm not doing this because I want to beat someone, because I hate someone, or because I want to blame someone. It's not because it's fun. God knows it's not because it's easy. It's not even because it works, because it hardly ever does. I do what I do because it's right. Because it's decent. And above all, it's kind. It's just that. If I run away today, good people will die. If I stand and fight, some of them might live. Maybe not many, maybe not for long. Maybe there's no point in any of this at all. But it's the best I can do. So I'm going to do it. And I will stand here doing it till it kills me. You're going to die too. Someday. What would that be? Have you thought about it? What would you die for? Who I am. It's where I stand, where I stand. It's where I fall.
To this?
I know there aren't many certainties in any of our lives. But Umbreen, Prem, what I see in you is the certainty you have in each other. Something I believe in my faith. Love, in all its forms, is the most powerful weapon we have. Because love is a form of hope, and like hope, love abides. In the face of everything. You both found love with each other. You believed in it, you fought for it, and you waited for it. And now, you're committing to it. Which makes you, right now, the two strongest people on this planet. Maybe in this universe.
Is both jarring and defeating. That's not to say the Doctor doesn't change. The Doctor absolutely changes over time, as does his personality. It happens through time and development. It happens throughout seasons. It even happens throughout years. But Doctor 13 is not the Doctor. If anything, it's a Matt Smith wannabe who isn't even a Doctor Who fan, written by someone who doesn't care about what he's writing. I had my problems with Whittaker's Doctor from the very beginning. I'm halfway through the episodes of this season now, and nothing has changed. But what else do you expect when you cast a woman to play an old man? Well, thinking about this too much is hurting my brain. I think I'll leave it here. I know I've missed out big parts of the episode, such as Manish and the partition of India, but these plots don't fare that much better than the rest of the plots in this episode. Besides, I'm not here to belt out my views on if they handled the historical events properly or not. I don't feel obligated to do so, unless it affects the quality of the episode as a whole. Rosa Parks. The episode barely had anything to do with the partition anyway, so I don't care much about it. There's a lot in this episode to talk about, and very little of it is good. I'm telling the truth when I say if I wasn't loyal to the series, I would have stopped here. And if the release of this review is anything to go by, I almost did. If not for the boring characters, for the uninspired, unimaginative PC storylines. Yes, I found this episode to be a much bigger improvement from the previous one, but this is episode 6. We're over halfway done with this season, and I'm still questioning stuff as basic as the main characters' personalities. If you'd ask me, I'd say skip this episode. The entire plot is flawed to the point where it doesn't lead to any change at all. Not in the past, not in the future, not even in the characters. If you took out the Doctor, the companions, and the £30 aquariums, you would still have the exact same story. Think about that. Cut out 2/3 of the episode's aspects, and the plot does not change. in the slightest. I doubt it's ever going to be brought up again in future episodes. So skip it. And they changed the end credit music again, oh for goodness sake. Uh-oh, watch out everyone. It's bingo time. Honestly, we're getting pretty close to ending bingo. Is this going to be the one where we win, lose, or will we have to wait longer to see? Let's find out. Shane Zaza, Hamza Jitoa, Amita Summon, all major roles. What is with these flippin' names, man? Okay then, you know the drill. Pop 'em on. Ooh, we're getting close. Just about there. I'm excited. Oh, I'm done. Goodbye.